Look, I don't know what you expected. Dragons gotta eat. House of the Dragon, Season 1 finale. Uh, Not as, game-changing or, I don't know, just not as much as I expected. It probably doesn't help that I'm watching this pretty much immediately coming off the back of seeing The Power of the Doctor, which, whatever you think about that special, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. There's definitely a lot going on. So to come from that to a season finale that just feels like a pretty logical extension of what had gone on in the previous episode, a whole lot of talking, and one event at the end that did not land with nearly as much punch as it was probably meant to, partly because it involved characters who have been recast thrice. So, I say thrice, recast twice, played by 3 people. I think 3. We saw them when they were super little, didn't we? I don't know. Look, my point is, I've brought it up repeatedly. And from my understanding, the major time jump should be done. So this should not be a problem for me again. But the time jumps and the associated recasting of certain characters as they aged up, while obviously a necessity of the format, did make it harder for me to engage with those characters. On an intellectual level, I can get that this is the same person from earlier episodes that I saw. But at an emotional level, I don't connect as much because it just doesn't necessarily feel like the same person. Obviously, they've grown, they've changed, and all in logical ways. It's not like they're suddenly out of character versus how we saw them when they were younger, but it's just, I don't have a connection. I didn't have long enough to connect with them really when they were younger, and then they do the jump forward, and I guess I now need to figure out exactly how I feel about them at this point, but I haven't, like, I do faces better than names. That's not just a memory thing. I connect and relate and associate feelings with a face a lot more than I do with a character's name. So you can call them whatever you want. As far as I'm concerned, they've only been around for a few episodes. So the entire closing incident, while having some very cool touches, which I'll circle back on, it didn't hit me particularly hard. I don't know if it was meant to be a shocking thing. It wasn't. I figured something bad was going to go down. And once the pieces were in place to move to what everyone was planning to do, that seems pretty logical, especially when the prince got to that castle. And yeah, there was Aemond. I think it's Aemond. I like these. Not only am I not bad with... Not bad. No, I'm not good. Not only am I not great with names inherently, so many of these names are so similar. I'll probably have it sorted next season. Like, I actually had a similar problem with Game of Thrones right when it started. I basically could barely remember anybody's name from the first season. Like, I slowly got hold of them, but there were tons of folks who I confused with each other for a while based on the names. But, like, after a season and a half, I got on top of it. I will with this too. I'm just not there yet. But yeah, this isn't a climax so much as it is a denouement, as much as it is just sort of playing out the effects of, well, honestly, more the effect of 2 episodes ago when the king died, than even really the previous episode, because as Damon himself points out, Renice really, I think I got that name right, really could have just ended this entire thing before it started, and she didn't. And for, can I be honest, a pretty weak justification. There will be war, but I will not strike the first blow. You could have struck a blow that would have prevented there being a meaningful war because there would have been no head of state. That's weak. I'm not even saying there's no way you can justify what she did, or more importantly, chose not to do. You certainly can, but that was weak. And I'm kind of annoyed that that entire issue got dropped after that answer, as if that was a sufficient answer. It's really not. It's really not. I kind of wish somebody in the room had kept pushing back on her on that, but whatever, we move along. The stuff with the stillbirth was very uncomfortable in a way that I'm not entirely sure how to feel about. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm trying to well, no, I'm not trying to decide. I can't decide. I can't decide if I feel the way that it was depicted was exploitational or not. They didn't take, they didn't take the opportunity to have her as a character appear naked. They did a fair amount of cutaways, but at the same time, it was quite like I looked away from the screen at several points. It was quite gruesome, but at the same time, in a way that, at least to my understanding, is realistic to, well, most births, and yeah, even something as tragic as a stillbirth. So it's not heightened in a way that makes it easy to call exploitational, but at the same time, how long it went on, how much of her screaming we heard, how long the camera lingered, even on not exceptionally explicit images, but still unsettling images. It just feels like it's just, for me personally, just a little more than was necessary, but not so much more than at least I feel was necessary that I'm prepared to call it exploitational. But it kind of walked up to the line for me. Again, other people might feel very different. Keep in mind, I don't check other people's opinions or feelings or anything before I do these reviews. But for me, I think emphasizing the loss, the pain, the tragedy of it, valid, especially her pain, which is what was centered. I think not having the camera in the room at all would have been too easy to just have the camera be on someone like Damon and like, dude, it's not about you right now. So I do have some appreciation for what they chose to do, but I'm also grappling with the fact that, oh boy, did it make me uncomfortable. And I don't know. I don't know how much of that is me and how much of that is the presentation. It could just be me. I don't know. It's certainly, I'll say this. This is probably the time I am most prepared to say it's just me when it comes to Game of Thrones related things making me uncomfortable. Because as I kind of went off when I did a little tangent about how they handled the sexual assault of the, what was it, the chambermaid or whatever, a couple of episodes ago. Game of Thrones historically has a tendency to do the most viscerally gross exploitational version of some of its uncomfortable stuff, and this show has already proven you can deal with the uncomfortable stuff. You can deal with it in a way that makes it feel real and makes it clear the damage that was done without actually showing it. In this case, they do, but this also isn't the same thing as what happened to that chambermaid. So I guess I'm kind of ultimately landing on this is probably more revealing of my own squeamishness than actually being a problem in and of itself. I think that's the conclusion I've now talked myself into. I don't know. People might disagree with that conclusion. I don't know. We're going to move on. The sea snake recovered. I didn't expect that. It was kind of odd to me that they kind of took him out for a while and didn't even really build any drama around that. He was just talked about as being ill, and now he's just back. I'd have to, I think, actually go back and rewatch previous episodes to like determine how narratively important was it for him to be sick and not be able to be there, because I'm not entirely sure I guess I get logistically a little bit why he shouldn't have been there, but like that feels like a real cheap way to do it. Oh, he's sick. He might die. Okay, the thing that we didn't want him around for happened. He's better now. Like that's kind of a prime example of what I tend to term plot convenientitis, a disease or condition or illness that manifests in a way to serve a very specific narrative function, but otherwise doesn't matter. So that kind of feels like what went on there a little bit. It was interesting that this zooms in so completely on Rhaenyra and Daemon and that whole side of things. And we don't know at all what the folks in King's Landing Well, no, we know a little because we saw Aemond had gone to this other guy to present an offer. Side with us, here's what you get. Whereas Rhaenyra is basically, she sent out her son effectively to just offer, hey, you told me you'd help and nothing else. And while it'd be nice if nobility actually worked that way, unless your last name is Stark, it doesn't. I did kind of like the touch that it was pointed out Starks don't break their oaths, which, yeah, that's true. That's part of why they really didn't survive the vast majority of them through the previous show. But most people aren't like that. From the position of that guy, and I thought it actually was a really neat touch that he couldn't read. He had to have the maester come over, read the message, and then sum it up to him. That was actually a cool little touch. I kind of dug that. And I could see how that would throw somebody like Rhaenyra or Rhaenyra's kids or that entire family off, because in their mind, nobility is like them. Similar education, similar understanding, similar knowledge background. And like, no, this guy can't read. He's still in charge of this castle that you've sent your son to. That was a cool little touch. I rather like that. But like from his perspective, this is a case of, all right, there's a situation going on. Both sides want something from me. Who has the better offer? And especially in his case, it was his father who swore the oath, not him. So the fact that one side showed up with nothing to offer, yeah, that's not shocking that that went down the way it did. What does try to be shocking is the death of the prince and his dragon. First of all, let me say that the visual realization of the dragons in flight in that chase, that was really well done. Especially bringing across the scale of Aemon's dragon. Like, they've made a point of how big that dragon is. They really brought it across this time. That was really well done. That was good stuff. And I thought it was really interesting that if you're paying attention to what these two are shouting to their dragons, it seemed like the prince's dragon attacked and spit fire against what the prince actually wanted to do. And then Aemond, he did not want his dragon to eat the other one. Now, part of me wonders, well, there's a couple of things at play here. Firstly, it's a nice reminder that, yes, they have dragons. They command dragons. But dragons are sentient beings who will sometimes act on their own. That is a real good thing to remind us of. They're not just tools who will do what they're told. So that's just a good thing to drop in there. Dig that. And in addition to that, I kind of like the ambiguity of not being sure if Aemon's reaction, his kind of horrified reaction, has to do with the idea that he never intended for the prince to get hurt and he was only trying to scare him, or if it just sinks into him that he basically started the flat out war. Like right now it's just been assembling arms, means. Like at this phase, both sides are trying to build up their forces. And depending on how that goes, it could still be resolved without combat. Because you build up your force, you see what the other side has built up, and maybe one of you folds because you see you're completely outmatched. Maybe you realize that you are so evenly matched that it's going to be so devastating you come to an arrangement. It was in a phase where it still did not have to necessarily end in bloodshed, but that's done now. And it's kind of his fault. I'll be real curious to know if he ever owns up to the fact that he didn't tell the dragon to do that and indeed tried to stop it. And if he does ever own up to that, who to? I wouldn't be surprised if he owns up to that with like a couple of people, maybe like, for instance, his mother, but has to give the presentation of, no, I told him to do that because the idea that he is not in control of his dragon makes him look weak. I'll be really curious to see how that plays out. But it was also a good shot to end on with Rhaenyra basically having rapidly run out of reasons to go about this diplomatically. Now it's personal. Up to this point, she has had an eye on what is best for the realm. But it's not just a threat to her family now. One of her children is dead. I would not expect her to prioritize the safety of the realm over demanding justice for that, or whatever she chooses to view as justice. We'll, again, see how that pans out. That having been said, like, there are a lot of little touches, little things here and there that, like, yeah, I dig it. That's good. But overall, it is still surprisingly little happening in this particular episode. It's still pretty good. I'm still liking the show. I think at this point I've settled into the position that I like this show, which I'm very happy about, because I came in kind of assuming I wasn't going to like it, because I really thought I was so done with Game of Thrones that it couldn't get me interested in again. That isn't what happened. I do like it. I don't love it. Could I come to love it? Maybe. I'll be back for the next season, certainly. But that's kind of where I am right now. I like this. I don't love it, but I like it. I'm up for some more. What are your thoughts? House of the Dragon, final episode. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills, keeps this whole operation up and running. Any assistance that you can grant there is of big help. You get things like early access to videos from the main channel, amongst other things. But don't worry too much about that. Like, share, subscribe, help me out as well. Besides, I try and take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. All right, time to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Loli, Becky Sparks, Fernobulax, The Poodle, Zach, Bookworm, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, Brendan LaRose, and TT. Thank you for your support. If you want to hear me try and say your name while this little guy tries to chew on my earrings, well, you can check out the Patreon for the support tiers that get you a shout out. Thanks so much. You are a pain in my butt.